All in. All in.
For this episode, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to show every single hand in a poker session, and at the end I will share some stats with you guys. There are quite a few vloggers that have done something like this, so the idea is definitely not original, but I have received some messages asking me to analyze more hands, and the reality is that for most live sessions, the vast majority of hands dealt are pre-flop folds or just simply don't have much worth discussing. So to give you a more realistic representation of a live session, this is my version of every single hand, and it will be for 1-3 at River Rock. For this hand, I pick up pocket kings. There's one limper, which I believe is from early position, and the button raises to $15. I just 3-bet to $45, and just take it down after that. For this hand, I pick up Jack 10 offsuit at the cutoff. Everyone folds, and I open to $10. Only the big blind calls. The flop comes 10-7-8 with 2 hearts. The villain checks and I go for a small bet of $6. This is a very wet, connected, draw-heavy board. I do have top pairs, so my goal is to get the showdown. The purpose of the small bet is to keep the betting lead and be in control of the pot size, and also fold out hands that completely missed. The villain calls. The turn is an offsuit 5. He checks again. Now that the villain has checked twice, I'm quite certain my top pair is in the lead. I go for a larger sizing bet of $20 to charge for any draws, which includes the flush draw or any 9x holding that can be an open-ender with the pair type hand. I can beat all 9-7 and 9-8 combos. The only 10 I beat would be 10-9, and I believe these are all the hands I can get good value from, of course also from any 2 hearts. If the villain calls, any river card would likely be a check back from me to get the showdown. He does call. The river is a jack of hearts. Even though I improved to top 2 pair, this might be the worst river card. Any of the draws I mentioned just got there. The villain checks and I'm happy to check it down. I show my hand and he mucks. For this hand, I have Jack 10 at the cutoff. There are 3 limpers before the action gets to me, and I decide to make a play to pick up all the dead money. I raise it to $25. 2 of the limpers call, and we are 3-way into a flop of Jack, Ace, Queen, Rainbow. I hit bottom pair plus a gut shot, not that strong of a hand. With 2 opponents calling a pretty big pre-flop raise, Ace or Queen holding is definitely in everyone's ranges. Both players check, and I gladly check back. The turn is an 8 of spades, putting a flush draw on the board. First villain checks, and the second villain bets $30. The turn card gave me a double gutter to go with my pair. I also blocked the straights with my 10, and unblocked the flush draw. I think this is a hand that has a lot of bluffing potential on the river, and not to mention I still have equity to improve. The villain's bet is small and doesn't seem that strong. In this game, a lot of times, players' bet sizes align with the strength of their hand. So if I don't hit, I think I have a really good shot at taking it down with a river bluff. I call. The first villain folds. The river is an offsuit 9, and I hit one of my outs for the straight. The villain checks. Now I just want to be paid one more street. I go for a small value bet of $40. The villain thinks for a while and folds. This hand, I pick up pocket tens on the button. Under the gun raises to $7 and there are 2 callers. When the action gets to me, I raise it to $30. The blinds fold and everyone calls. It is 4-way into a flop of 5-10 queen rainbow. Everyone checks to me. This is an amazing flop for me as I hit middle set on a rainbow board multi-way. I go for a half pot bet sizing of $60. Under the gun calls and everyone else folds. The turn card is a 9 of diamonds that completes the rainbow. The villain checks again. Jack-8 makes a straight, but I don't think that can be in his range for raising under the gun and then calling a 3-bet. King-Jack is a nut straight, and also the open-ender that got there, but I think opening with that and calling a 3-bet, it's still a little too loose for this table. Though it's possible, his most likely holdings would be Ace-Queen, Ace-King, Ace-Jack, King-Queen. I feel like it's 2 Broadway cards type hand that still has equity. If he has the nut straight, then so be it. His stack is now less than pot size, and I believe I have the effective nuts, so I just go all in. The villain thinks for a while, so I fade the snap call, and I know I'm good. He does eventually make the call. The river is a queen, which gives me the full house. I table my hand, and the villain mucks. This hand, I pick up 10-Jack on the button. There is a late position limper, and I just raise it to $15 to either take it down pre-flop or isolate. The villain does call, and we are heads up to a flop of 9-10 queen. The villain checks. This is a really good flop that gives me second pair and an open-ender. I'm pretty certain my pair is in the lead, and would likely take it down with a c-bet. But I do decide to check it back to protect my checking range, as well as maybe get a street of value by under-repping. I think these small pots are good spots to mix it up and balance your range. There's likely not much value to be made here anyways, since the villain is probably just crushed and has given up. But if you think the table is paying enough attention, you can utilize these spots to show that you can check back strong hands sometimes as well as bet weaker hands sometimes. Anyways, the turn is a king, which does give me a straight. The villain checks again, and I go for a bet of $15. He folds and I take it down. And none of the stuff I said about balancing matters because there's no showdown, but I just let you guys in on some of my thoughts. This hand, I am in the big blind with 8-3 of clubs. There are 2 limpers, the small blind calls, and I check. We are 4-way into a flop of 4-7-5 with 2 clubs. Amazing flop for my hand as I have a flush draw and a gut shot straight draw. The small blind checks to me. With so much equity, I want to start building the pot with more callers. I lead out for $6. The low jack calls and the small blind calls. The turn is the deuce of spades. I don't hit any of my outs yet, but I do pick up an additional open-ender to go with my already strong draw. Seeing that my first bet wasn't raised, and the small blind has checked to me again, I think that this is a good spot for me to keep barreling. My 3 and 8 actually blocks all the straights, so even if I miss again, it's not a bad hand to bluff the river and rep any of the straights, which would be ace-3, 3-6, or 6-8. I fire again, this time for $25. The low jack calls, and the small blind folds. The river is a 6, and my straight draw gets there. I bet $40 for value, which is half pot. The villain thinks for a while and calls. I show my hand and he mucks. This hand, I pick up 10 jack of hearts at the cutoff. Under the gun +1 opens to $16 and everyone folds to me. I contemplate 3-betting here, but the open is from a pretty early position with a pretty strong sizing as well. So I just call to take this hand to the streets, which plays really well post-flop in position, and also a hand that I don't mind inviting a multi-way pot. The big blind also calls. It's 3-way to a flop of Queen King 6 with 2 clubs. The big blind checks and the pre-flop aggressor c-bets for $25. I have an open-ender here in position, so it's a pretty easy call for me. The big blind folds. The turn card is the 9 of hearts, and I hit the nut straight. The villain checks. Although there is a flush draw possibility out there, I really don't think the villain has it. Him leading out for half pot multi-way just seems like a hand that's not a draw. Likely a king with ace king or queen king. I'm pretty sure he's just drawing pretty dead here. I don't think my hand needs protection at all, and I want to get 2 more streets of value here, and I put him on a hand that would pay it off. I bet $45. The villain calls. The river is a jack of clubs. The villain checks again. One of the worst cards, as the board completes the flush and puts out a 4-card straight. I'm certain I'm still good here, but the card is just an action killer. I don't think I can go for a big bet anymore if I want to get paid. I don't think polarizing bets work that well in these stakes. I decide to make a small value bet that targets 1 pair or 2 pair that will make a crying call. I bet $40. The villain tanks for a while and calls. I show my hand and he mucks. This hand is not one that has anything worth analyzing, but what happens in the end is, I'll let you guys be the judge. I pick up Queen King of Spades and there's 1 limper. I raise to $15 and he calls. It's heads up and this villain has lost a couple pots to me. I notice that he gets a bit annoyed whenever I raise. Anyways, I completely miss the board and we end up checking down all the way. After the river card is dealt, the villain points to me, and I presume that means a check. So I open my king high, but then...
I didn't check. Oh, you didn't check? I didn't check.
Oh. That's right, you pointed to me. Yeah, that's okay. Maybe the whole situation was some kind of accident, but even the dealer was surprised he didn't mean that gesture as a check. I flash my whole card before the hand is over, so that's a muck. Did I get angled here? Let me know what you think. This hand, I pick up 3-6 of diamonds. It's not a spectacular hand, but I call a pre-flop raise. I miss the flop and then I end up folding. And there are a lot of these types of hands where it just doesn't get past the flop, and yeah, not much interesting to really talk about. This hand, I pick up ace-10 on the big blind. There's an open from middle position to $15. The cutoff calls and I call. We are 3-way to a flop of ace-queen-9 with 2 clubs. Even though I have top pair with a decent kicker, I don't have a great feeling about this spot. The cutoff position is really tight, and I haven't seen him show down anything weaker than ace-queen. I check. The middle position bets $50. The cutoff jams all in. I make a pretty easy laydown here. It is later revealed that the cutoff was on a combo draw and makes the nut flush by the river. This hand, I pick up ace-10 again, but at the hijack position. There are 3 limpers, and I raise it up to $25. I get 2 callers. I am in position, and it's a 3-way to a flop of ace-queen-9 with 2 hearts. This is almost exactly the same hand and same flop as a few hands ago, with the same number of players. But I feel much more comfortable this hand with top pair. It's quite amazing how big the difference is between in position and out of position. I get to see and assess what everyone's actions are before I act, and everyone checks to me. I go with a C bet of $25. Everyone folds, and I'm happy to take this one down on the flop. This hand, I pick up ace-jack at the cutoff. There are 2 limpers and I raise it to $20. Both of the limpers call. We are 3-way to a flop of king-jack-jack with 2 diamonds. +1 leads out for $50. The low jack folds and the action is on me. I can't see the villain leading out without a king or jack, so I'm not at all concerned about the flush draw out there. He's likely holding a king. I just call to let him keep the betting lead. The turn is an ace. My hand just keeps getting better. I now have the full house, but unfortunately the villain checks. I feel even more certain now he's just holding a king and maybe has king queen or king 10. I contemplate checking back, but if he does have a gut shot and pair, maybe even ace queen, I feel like I can charge a small bet. I bet $50. The villain thinks for a while and folds. I decide to make this the final hand of this session, and I start racking up. Here are the results of this session. I bought in for $400 and I cashed out for $1,092. That is a profit of $692. The results will be shown right here. And now it's time for some stats. Not sure if you can take anything away from this. I just found these numbers to be quite interesting, and I hope you do as well. It's a relatively short session for live, so small sample size, but here we go. I was dealt a total of 94 hands, and I played for 3 hours and 38 minutes. So that's an average of 26 hands per hour. Of the 94 hands, I folded 75 hands pre-flop, which means I was in for 19 hands. And yeah, essentially that's my VPIP, which is 20.21% this session. Of the 19 hands I played, I won 11 and lost 8. Yeah, won 11 pots and lost 8 pots. So of these 19 hands, I only went to showdown with 5 of them. And this is just kind of arbitrary and lucky, but I won every showdown. I got dealt pocket pair a total of 5 times. And of those 5 times, I hit a set on the flop once. And this last number will be subjective depending on what you think of hand number 63. But out of 94 hands, I got angled once. And that is it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope you look forward to the next.